TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Farm Stallion Brody's Cause, the Grade 1 winning 2-year-old and 3-year-old by Giants Causeway, new for 2017.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. We'd like to welcome you guys in. Joel, this is our 8th season of Triple Crown Insider, and man, we have followed some really good horses over the years.
And I think this is a good group this year. You know, covering these 3-year-olds, you sort of look back to 2016 to see what the 2-year-old crop was like. Obviously, that was one of the Breeders' Cup juveniles we've seen, John, in terms of the final time, the speed figures produced, multiple Grade 1 winners in the field, and it's always led by that winner who was your champion. That's Classic Empire coming into 2017.
You know, you mentioned some of the 3-year-olds from last year. There was one that didn't make it on the Triple Crown Trail, but Joel, he proved to be one of the best horses of that crop. You know, he could be one of the best of all time, and we were fortunate enough to be down at Gulfstream Park. Yeah. We got to do some behind the scenes of the world's richest race now, which is the Pegasus World Cup. Let's take the viewers now. Let's go behind the scenes at Gulfstream Park in the Pegasus World Cup.
Life on the track starts early. These horsemen live a life that many would describe as grueling, but you'd never see it on their faces. In fact, many of them say it's the very horses they care for that give them the drive to be here day in and day out.
He makes it real easy to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day and go to work. You know, you got horses like him in the barn.
We had the privilege of covering the inaugural running of the Pegasus World Cup.
It was basically Frank Stronach's vision to have the best horses in the world compete in this race.
I think this is a chance for everybody to come into one spot all over the world and to get going and to really kick off our season. So I think in that respect, it's over the years going to be very positive.
For $12 million, it's a heavyweight title match, so hopefully it'll be another thriller coming down the stretch.
We all wondered, could this event be a huge success? Kind of like we wondered, what was Mr. Stronach thinking when he built a huge Pegasus in the parking lot? But you know what? It all makes sense now. This race drew both the world's richest and the world's highest rated racehorses. We stood on the rail and watched them run for $12 million. And it was a thrill of a lifetime. In that moment, we realized this is exactly what horse racing needs.
Man, Joel, what a thrill being there, watching the Pegasus World Cup. I want to thank TaylorMade and all the connections for the access they gave us to California Chrome. You know, their horse didn't run the way that they had hoped. You know, he came out of the gate and, you know, maybe he tweaked his knee a little bit, but obviously that wasn't the Chrome that we all know. Sure. But they were so gracious. Art Sherman, Alan Sherman, the whole team there giving us that access. And of course, Bob is always great working with us. Stronach Group really took care of us. I mean, they really put on a great show, Joel.
Really was. I mean, out of the box, all the way around, as you mentioned in that piece, John. I mean, for Stronach to sort of get shareholders to each pitch in $1 million, to fill 12 gate spots, make a marquee event in a very unorthodox time on the calendar. I mean, normally wintertime, we're putting these big horses away. We're not running our best horses in January. Right. Well, he's flipped the script. That's changed now. The world's richest race. Everything went out pretty much without a hiccup. A tremendous day. The weather's always great in South Florida, seemingly this time of year. It's where you want to be. And I think you're going to see this event grow. They're going to add a turf element to it, in my opinion. I think you're going to see the undercard grow, and it's really going to be a marquee event that's going to rival a Breeders' Cup or a Dubai World Cup type event. So kudos to them for the concept, and I think it's only going to get better. And again, Gulfstream Park, they set a track record. Yep. Handled over $40 million. So they showed that this spot on the calendar, they can pull off this type of marquee event and grow our sport.
You know, we mentioned Chrome didn't run exactly the way that they had hoped to end his career, but there was another big horse there that day, and that was Arrogate. Joel, he really put on a show, and hey, it was pretty nice to see the house horse run second too.
Oh, absolutely, and you're talking about Shaman Ghost, owned by Stronach. He comes rallying here in between horses, but let's look at your winner, John. Arrogate. I mean, when they're going down the backstretch and Chrome wasn't able to take a tactical advantage over him on a speed bias type track, I knew it was over at that point because Arrogate, he was able to get free sailing. He wasn't stopped on the inside. You don't want to get a horse with his stride stopped because you'll never get him started again. Mike Smith beautifully ran him, and once he was settled in a cruising speed down the backstretch, it was over. I don't know if there's been a horse that we've seen in recent memory that can match strides with this. He is one of the best strides you'll ever see on a thoroughbred, John. These long legs, and for such a big frame, leggy type colt, I mean, he floats over the ground. He's able to turn those legs over so well and so athletically. An amazing colt, and he's going to shade 24 coming home his final quarter. That's what he's proven to be. You're not going to match strides with him. So with Chrome not taking that tactical edge, not being as sharp, but hey, look, I got to give Chrome credit. They could have retired him. They brought him back here to run the Pegasus, and I think that's the beauty of this Pegasus event and what it's going to be going forward.
What I love seeing too is, you know, Bob mentioned it in the piece. You saw American Pharoah. Chrome picked it up from American Pharoah, kept everybody interested in horse racing. Now you see Arrogate picking it up for Chrome. And Joel, I'm excited to see what we got coming up in 2017. Let's go ahead and take a look at the TCI top 10 for the 2017 crop of 3-year-olds.
Are there any colts that can pick it up from Arrogate? That's my question, John. But let's go over to the video monitor and unveil our first TCI top 10 leading up to the Kentucky Derby for 2017. I think atop of that list, you have to have Classic Empire. You're going to see him number 1 on most lists. I really like the move up from this colt when he was able to gain some racing experience, and particularly when he got blinkers on. Got so much more tactical. Son of Pioneer the Now, he's your champion. He's your Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner. He comes in with a record already at Churchill Downs, the ability to like that racetrack. So to me, when you're looking Kentucky Derby, you have to like his package more than anybody else. Now, not this time. I think the colt that was running at him in the Breeders' Cup, unfortunately, him going by the wayside, that actually benefits Classic Empire, because I actually thought Not This Time may have been the most talented 2-year-old last year. Probably was going to come into 2017 as the horse to beat in the Kentucky Derby. He's no longer around, so Classic Empire belongs in that top spot. Number 2, I like American Anthem. Right now, he's probably the second string Bob Baffert colt. I liked his sham effort last time out. He's the horse that comes out of there for me, even though he was the runner-up, was beaten by Gormley in there. I like him going forward. He's a big, physical, impressive colt, a very good way of moving. He's going to love 1.25 miles. He's got the right connections. Windstar, Bob Baffert, to only develop. He's one that I'm extremely confident is going to improve and get better off that performance. You'll see him next time out in the San Felipe and then probably Santa Anita Derby. And McCracken, undefeated, great closing style, honest as the day is long, loves Churchill Downs, has that current form. And I think, again, you look at his pedigree and the numbers, he's going to like 1.25 miles. You have to have McCracken in the top 3. Mastery, Bob Baffert's a colt right now. He's the colt that I think Bob has the most confidence in. Beautiful striding colt by Candy Ride, who loved 1.25 miles. So you have to be optimistic, again, about his chances as a Derby-type colt. I have him in the 4th spot. And then number 5, I think, is important to note, because when we're talking about Bob Baffert, you got to go to the East Coast. And what's Todd Pletcher have this year? Horseman obviously has a lot of horses that normally run in the Kentucky Derby, a lot of talent in that barn. I like Battalion Runner the most, based on what I've seen in training and racing. Big, rangy son of a bridled song. He's that typical 2-turn cruiser. I'm so anxious to see him run Friday in allowance race. He's finally going to get around 2 turns. That'll be his prep for the Fountain of Youth. If he is very successful in that allowance race, I think you're going to see him maybe next time out against Classical Empire in a showdown in that Fountain of Youth Stakes. A colt with a ton of ability, John. So really, for me, that is my top 5, and you have to have Classic Empire in that 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, Classic Empire is the horse that is not only top of your list, but Joel, he's atop the points right now. You know, the way that the Derby is set up, they have to earn points. It's not just on earnings anymore. There's a point system. He's in the lead right now. But what's interesting about your top 10, just so the viewers understand, the horse that's in number 2, I think he only has 2 points. So you don't base this off of how many points they've earned. We're very early into it. Let's talk a little bit about Gormley, because you see American Anthem. Gormley beat him last time out, but you got him all the way down in number 6. Tell me why.
Yeah, I think you made an important note there, is that we're trying to identify talent early. At this time, you know, beginning of February, we've seen most of these colts run. We've seen the talent and the potential, and we're really trying to project to 1.25 miles that first Saturday in May, right? So it's not as much as your accolades right now.
Right.
It's what you can be going 1.25 miles in May. And that's why you see a colt like American Anthem, number 2 on my list. No doubt Classic Empire deserves that top spot, and we'll see what he does this weekend, John. But let's go back to Gormley for a second. I saw him just up there on the screen. If you like American Anthem at number 2, you have to like the horse that ran him down in the sham, right? Gormley had all the experience coming in, but he's a Grade 1 winning 2-year-old. He didn't run well in the Breeders' Cup. It's a little concerning, but he did have a wide trip and wasn't without excuse in there. But when I look at John Sheriff's and his training pattern, the fact that he was a Grade 1 winning 2-year-old, and he showed that talent winning the front runner stakes and so impressively at Santa Anita, and then coming back running American Anthem down, a legit colt. you know, in the sham.
Yep.
I think Gormley is a colt you have to have in the top 5 or 6, because if you like American Anthem, you have to like the Grade 1 winner that beat him.
All right, and then at number 7 and number 8, you have horses that don't have very much experience, you know, including Always Dreaming in at number 8. Joel, this horse just broke his maiden.
Yeah, I mean, here's an exciting young son of Bodemeister here that showed some talent as a 2-year-old, but boy, when he switched to the Todd Pletcher barn this winter, he has been working up a storm down there. You've heard a lot of buzz about this colt. Went around 2 turns in that maiden race at Tampa Downs last week. Won by, 11, 12 lengths in there. Had his ears pricked, galloped out huge. I think you're going to see him back maybe in the Sam Davis, where he'll have to face a colt like McCracken if he goes in there. He'll have a tactical edge over McCracken. McCracken's a closer. That'll be very interesting litmus test for a colt like Always Dreaming. When I'm looking at talent, potential, and upside, he kind of is almost like his sire. You know, Bodemeister didn't break his maiden as a 2-year-old. He was late on the scene at 3, always had the ability, improved around 2 turns, and he fast-tracked his way to the Derby, and we know what he did there, almost won.
Well, here's what's exciting about this time of year, Joel, is that we have some of our horses in the top 10 that will be running this weekend. And if you guys come back right after this break, we're going to get to talk about some of those races, including Classic Empire in the Holy Bull.
Brody's Cause on the outside. Final furlong of the Claiborne Breeders' Futurity. Brody's Cause a final try. Brody's Cause and Corey Lannery a tremendous run. Brody's Cause at the 16th pole. Brody's Cause in front. Brody's Cause for Luis Saez to win the Toyota Bluegrass.
Welcome back, and it's time now to preview this weekend's races. And Joel, let's start off in California, and let's talk about the Robert Lewis. You know, right now it's early on, so these races are only worth 10 points to the winner. We only see 5 in here, Joel. 3 of them are Doug O'Neill's.
Well, we're still in the discovery stage. It's early enough to sort of try to find these emerging, maybe late emerging 3-year-olds at this time of year. And I don't know if we're going to find one in this race. Like you mentioned, John, it's not top heavy. Doug O'Neill has 3 colts in here. It's only a 5-horse field. They carded it early on the day because it's such a short field, and there's no stars in here. Really, it's essentially a bunch of maiden winners out there. Their top flight colts, as everybody knows, are Bob Baffert's colts, Mastery, American Anthem, then you have Gormley. Now, Gormley's connections also have the 1 horse in here, Royal Mo. Well-bred son of Uncle Mo, who's run behind, you know, a couple nice Bob Baffert maidens. He broke through last time out, finally getting around 2 turns. To me, he's interesting because I think he has to show speed from the rail in here. But to me, IRAP, one of the 3 Doug O'Neill colts in here, the Tis Now colt, getting blinkers on. He has the best back class, in my opinion, when you look at him. He wasn't able, he's still, I say that, he's still a maiden. And, you know, here's a colt that was a favorite last time out. Faded to 4th, but that was on a sloppy track. He gets blinkers on here. I just particularly liked his move against Mastery on the turn when he was able to collar Mastery in the Low South Futurity. So again, in a weak renewal of the Bob Lewis, I'll give the edge to IRAP over here, but I'm very interested to see how Royal Mo runs, maybe on the lead, breaking from the rail, getting around 2 turns. He has that big pedigree and upside for the Sheriff.
All right, well, let's move now to the East Coast, and let's go to Aqueduct. We have the Withers. You know, Joel, we got a horse that won the Jerome last time out in here. He won the thing by 11 1/4. So is he going to be the favorite coming into this race?
Yeah, Ella Reeves is going to make a lot of top 10 lists, you know, based on his Jerome performance where he won by double digits and really beat a lot of these horses he's going to have to face back in here. So you had to be impressed. You know, he's out of an AP Indy mare by exchange rate. You know, certainly sloppy tracky like last time out, but you have to be impressed by the fact that, you know, he showed that Laurel sprint, that Maryland sprint form, and then was able to go on the road in New York, go around 2 turns for the first time, and win by double-digit lengths. I think that shows that the colt's going to be a 2-turn type. Still, the jury's a little out on how good he is. He got a 91 buyer speed figure last time out, but really when I look at this field, again, the only new shooter, you want to look for new shooters in here since he beat most of these already so soundly. I look at J-Boy's Echo, a colt by Dale Romans who broke his maiden at Keeneland, I thought very impressively, as a 2-turn pedigree. I actually thought he'd run better at Delta Downs. Don't know what happened there. He disappointed in the Delta Jackpot. Some horses don't like to ship and run under lights, so who knows if he has an excuse or not. But Dale did consider running this colt this weekend against Classic Empire in the Holy Bull.
Okay.
But instead decided to take the easier path, put him on the road, run him in the withers, get him back around 2 turns. So I do like his outside draw in here. If he's able to stalk El Arib, I think he's really the only colt that can beat him this weekend.
All right, well, you mentioned the Holy Bull, of course, is at Gulfstream Park, and what makes it the marquee race this weekend is that we do see our 2-year-old champion back in action. That's Classic Empire.
Yeah.
Joel, there's some horses in here that have broke their maiden pretty impressively. Is there anybody in here who can really test Classic Empire, though?
This is a good field. I mean, I mentioned the Delta Jackpot. You have the Delta Jackpot impressive winner in here, and that was Gunnavar, who was the favorite in that race. And he rallied, which is, trust me, it's difficult to do in that bull ring down there at Delta. He was able to come from well off the pace and blow by his competition. That wasn't the best field ever, but still, he beat him the right way by over 5 lengths, John, going away. So the only thing I don't like about Gunnavar, I've heard great things on how he's training down there. I mean, his trainer's gone as far as to say this colt is special. So I do think going forward, maybe on a fair racetrack, he's out of an unbridled mare, he's got that proper closing style. I think he's going to be a classic contender. I do think he's up against it here, and that's just because of the Gulfstream track and how it typically plays. I mean, he's going to break from the rail, he's going to take all that spray, he's going to save the ground early, but I don't see a colt making up any ground on a horse like Classical Empire at a racetrack like Gulfstream. And we mentioned it earlier, since Classic Empire's got blinkers on, John, he's been a different colt.
Yeah.
He has that tactical speed, the ability to really tailor himself to that Gulfstream Park track. So that's my problem with Gunnavar in here. I think he's up against it. I find it very hard for Classic Empire to get beat in this race. I think the only horse that, to me, has the upside to maybe beat him is Grand Motion's colt, and that's Irish War Cry. Gets Joel Rosario, he's undefeated son of Curlin. Had good 2-year-old form, even though it was in Maryland. He gets Lasix now and should only be a better 3-year-old as he develops and gets around 2 turns. But how good is he? Classic Empire is a pretty good colt, John.
Yep.
I don't know if Irish War Cry is quite there yet. And then fact finding. I mean, Todd Pletcher, you got to always find the Todd Pletcher colt in here. He could have run Battalion Runner. He didn't. He took the conservative route. Pointed for allowance race Friday with him. Instead of sending out Fact Finding, who won the Smooth Air Stakes by 7 lengths last time out of Gulfstream. That was a 1-turn mile. He's a son of the Factor. He's out of a Deputy Commander mare, though, so he'd probably like 2 turns. But still, even with this tactical speed, maybe he can press Classic Empire, maybe even goes to the lead. But to me, he's not in the same lithosphere as Classic Empire, so I don't expect him to put a dent in the champ. I think the champ gets it done in here, and the question will be, what kind of performance will we get? Will it be too much of a performance? Because we've seen these Holy Bulls in the past few years, John. They produce these exciting horses, K-Row Prince, and we can think of a lot of colts that they produce, and they always fall by the wayside. I think Mohaymen was another one we got excited about. I had him on top of my Derby list last year. Well, we saw Mohaymen really fizzled. We see this race to where you get a top effort too early in the year, and that could be a detriment going forward because we want him to peak in May. We don't want him to peak now.
Well, it's worth mentioning, too, to the fans, Classic Empire, he's by the same sire as American Pharaoh, a horse who went on and won the Triple Crown. And by the way, American Pharaoh's birthday today, so happy birthday, champ. We miss you. Well, thank you guys so much for watching the show. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap these races, and we'll see if Classic Empire can add to his Kentucky Derby point lead.